We have another update on LaMelo Ball's health status from Steve Clifford himself. Does it look promising this time? Plus, Brandon Miller wins another Rookie of the Month award. We'll talk about all of it today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcasts, and that includes YouTube. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As always, we appreciate FanDuel for hopping on, as it is coming to North Carolina soon, folks. March 11th, don't forget. Today's episode being brought to you by FanDuel means that every moment is more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet, and that's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. There's Doug Branson. You can find him on the Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com, and you can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday, 92.7 FM. And so we hosted Wes and Walker on WFNZ yesterday from the Spectrum Center. We had a chance to talk to Bryce McGowan, Steve Clifford, a part of their military care event, their 10th straight year. So cool stuff there. Mentioning Steve Clifford, Bryce McGowan didn't give us a whole lot. So not a whole
I was going to say, what did Bryce say?
Not a whole lot of audio from Bryce. I tried asking him about Draymond Green's comments on Grant Williams and if the team responded, and he said, "It's the NBA, man. People talk." I'm like, yeah, okay, that's true, and it's Draymond. So yeah, he's a cool kid. Just didn't give us a lot.
That's a savvy sophomore move. Don't get in a shooting war with Draymond Green. It's not going to go well.
That's true. He did know that. We did talk with Steve Clifford though, and as always, Steve Clifford is a good interview. He's a good quote at the podium, and he gave us another health update on LaMelo. I asked him about LaMelo, Seth Curry, Cody Martin, and we'll get to all of that in just a moment. But of course, we need to lead off with LaMelo. Before we do that, Doug,
sorry, Steve. Steve tried to jump in there for a second. He really wants to talk about LaMelo.
I didn't even hear Steve, to be honest with you. Just hold on 1 second.
Steve.
If you had the quote from last week, because I want to play these back to back, right? We had this quote before the first Milwaukee game, Doug, or was it the second? I think it was before the second, actually. Before the Milwaukee game, Steve Clifford gave this health update on LaMelo. What did he say, Doug?
He said, quote, "It's hard to tell. He's doing the same stuff now he was doing 2 weeks ago. I don't know that stuff. He does what they allow him to do. There's a lot of factors in that. He wants to be back, just doesn't feel healthy enough, and people aren't comfortable enough that he should play." Unquote.
Okay. So that was last week. That was like 5 days ago, not even. And I asked him about LaMelo Ball yesterday. Here's what Steve Clifford said this week.
Melo's doing more and more. He had a good workout today, did some live before we came up here. And I feel like he's getting closer, but not quite there yet.
Okay. That seems different to me. It's not a lot. He decided to keep it short and sweet, but I think in the shortness and the sweetness, he gave us more than he did last week. So the last quote he was last week, he was telling you that he wasn't doing much more than what he had been doing over the last couple weeks span. Here, he's telling you he's doing more and more. And then he even told you that he went live with those guys yesterday and that they expect him. They don't know when, but he's close, just not quite there yet. Doug, to me, that's very different than what we heard last week, where it was a longer answer, caused a lot more panic. Here, you would feel like LaMelo was going to come back at some point somewhat soon. Close. He's close. Those were the words from Steve Clifford. What do you make of the comment from Steve?
I just tell me when he's back, man. I get it, Walker. You're a radio professional. You're doing your job. You have to ask the question. And then if you ask the question, then Steve Clifford has to answer the question in some way. But I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of the back and forth of the maybe he's this, maybe he's that, he's doing this, he's not doing that. Just tell me don't even tell me when he's out. Just tell me when he's back. That's all I want to know. Because at this point, it's obvious that it is a little bit confusing. It is, I think, a little bit complicated because I believe Clifford when he says in the first quote that there's a lot of factors that go into this. There's his team, there's his feeling, LaMelo's feeling on it. There's the organization that just signed this guy to a max contract. And if he can't remain healthy, as Bobby Marks said on your show a few days ago, if LaMelo can't stay healthy, then all of a sudden the decisions that the new EVP of basketball operations that they're about to hire, Jeff Peterson, all of a sudden his decisions get a lot more complicated, because now you've got a guy who was supposed to be the face of your franchise, who can't stay healthy, is on a max contract, will be much more difficult to move to another team, and things get much more complicated. So obviously the organization has a lot of incentive to be careful, because the Hornets aren't really playing for anything. And I understand Clifford wanting to win and bring that mentality to the young players on this team and keep that spirit alive. But in reality, they have nothing to play for. I mean, I don't think after 4 straight losses, I'm suddenly off the play-in train. I'm in the player improvement train. It didn't take long, but that's not me. That's the team. They lost 4 straight. Okay, right. That's not me.
True. That's true.
So that's really my take on this. Is just like, I get it. It's confusing. It's complicated, and I think that a lot of what Clifford says is going to depend on his mood. You caught him at a charity event. And there was no game going on. Whereas when he said the first quote, it was after the Hornets offensively were the worst they had been all season. They set a season low, NBA season low, for points scored in a half, and they broke their own record in that respect. And so obviously before another game against Milwaukee, he was feeling a little spicy probably about not having LaMelo and having to continue to answer questions about him not being back. And I'm sure it is frustrating for him to see LaMelo, his best player, who he needs to win games, doing the same things that he was doing 2 weeks ago and still not playing. That's got to be frustrating.
No, I think mood dictates how everybody speaks in pretty much every way of life almost. But I will tell you, I think and I don't know exactly what you mean with the mood stuff, because I do think him going live yesterday matters. Like, even if we just wanted to take he's close, the vagueness out of it, I would say the fact that he did go live yesterday before they walked up, and that would have been an hour before shoot around the charity event. The fact that happened, I do think we can actually take real substance there. The fact that he went live with those guys. And so if that's the case, now we have evidence from the head coach himself that it's not just pregame warmups where somebody takes a video of him going 50%, crossing up people out on the perimeter, having fun before the game. No, he went live. And I think that's something that we can take away that I don't think would have changed based off of Steve Clifford's mood. And the fact that he is close, I think he's going to come back. Like, I do. The real question is, should he? Like, I know people will talk about, well, there's only 21 games left in the regular season. Why are we bringing him back now? Yeah, I still think there is enough here to warrant bringing him back as long as he's healthy and there's not a big risk of re-injury. Yes, I still think it's worth it to try to get as much time as possible between your 2 best players, in Brandon Miller, who wins Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month again, we'll talk about it in a moment, and LaMelo. If those guys can share the court, gain some momentum before going into next year, that matters to me. Of course, above all else is making sure that LaMelo is as healthy as possible. But if he is healthy, then it's time to get basketball going between those 2 guys in particular, and then everybody else that you might have as a foundational piece going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. He has to prove that he can play on the ankles. And you want him to prove that when he's 100% healthy. And you want the organization, too, to have some plausible deniability of saying, look, we did everything we could. If he gets injured again, look, we did everything we could to prevent that from happening. We were careful. We could have brought him back several weeks ago. We didn't. There you go. You don't want that organizational malpractice involved there. You want it to be, well, the player couldn't stay healthy. And that's just what it was. But he needs to come back, because we saw him earlier in the season, first couple of games, first like 10 games, you saw what a rusty LaMelo looked like. You saw what a LaMelo looked like that needed to adjust to some of the hardware in his ankles and adjust his shot a little bit, and then he got it going. And so you'd much rather, I think, see LaMelo do that in the remainder of the games this season, so that he can develop some more relationships and shake all that off, and then get started in the offseason and be ready to go for game 1 of next season. You'd much rather him do that now than have to figure that out in the first 5 or 10 games of next season.
And there is enough games here even too, right, where maybe you do have the rust and then you turn it around before season's end. So that's a good point.
I'll take Rusty Melo at this point. I think Rusty Melo would make this offense. I think good Melo would make this offense like 10 points better. Rusty Melo would probably make them 5 points better.
There is a Rusty LaRue. Instead, we can just go Rusty LaMelo. That's what we can roll with. And I will gladly take Rusty LaMelo as well. Let's move on. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Brandon Miller wins Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month again. He very well could just win all the other awards before season's end, which I think is just one more. But either way, I think he could go on a streak. We'll get to it in just a moment here on Locked On Hornets. Before we get to Brandon Miller, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off of our chest, whether it's big or small. Certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who is unbiased on your life. And so today, you might want to say how you really feel about something. You might even be thinking about something this week that has been bothering you for a while. If so, therapy can be helpful for you, and therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off of your chest every once in a while. If that's the case, if you're thinking of starting therapy, then give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule, and you can visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. More Locked On Hornets ahead. On to some good news here, Doug, for the Hornets after a 4-game losing streak. I guess yesterday would qualify as good news for LaMelo. I don't know. I think good news for you would just not be talking about it. Fair enough. I think it's been an exhaustive topic.
Tell me when he's back.
Brandon Miller wins Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month, and he's done that for a second straight month. It's fun to see your rookie be better than all the other rookies. That is so much fun to see.
In the Eastern Conference.
That's right, Eastern Conference, not Wemby, not Chet.
It's an important distinction.
Fair enough. But Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month, Brandon Miller, is the best rookie just on this side of the United States. He does so shooting 45% in February from the field. He shoots 37% from three on 7.5 attempts per game, 88% from the free throw line, 4.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and overall averages 20.5 points over the 13 games he played and started in the month of February. Doug, what do you make of Brandon winning yet another Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month award?
Yeah, we can talk about the jumps that he made from January to February. So he went from 16 points to 20.5 points. The steals jumped up significantly from just a little bit over a half a steal a game to now 1.8 steals per game. I mean, he's averaging nearly 2 steals a contest, or he averaged that in February, and then 2.5 and then 0.8 blocks, which is up from 0.2 blocks. So nearly a block a game as well. He has really accelerated his defensive impact, and certainly he's scoring a lot. Now, the efficiency didn't jump all that much. He's taking a few more shots, about 3 more shots overall, and about 1 extra 3-point attempt, and that could, or that does account for the scoring jump. It's just the efficiency really didn't follow, and I think that's where the improvement has to come overall for him as a player. He won Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month because the competition is a little bit thin. Jaime Jaquez has been an important piece for Miami, but just doing a little bit of everything and a lot of it on the defensive end of the floor. He had I think a 26-point game, but really just averaging a little bit over 10 points a game in February. The numbers weren't gone.
His numbers have gone down too.
Yeah.
Jaime hasn't been as good because in the first couple months he was incredible. Yeah, but he's waned a little bit.
And so, the competition is thin in the Eastern Conference. If there were an Eastern Conference Rookie of the Year, I think Brandon Miller would win it. He's not going to win Rookie of the Year because Wembanyama's really running away with it, then you'd have to get, if you suddenly Wembanyama were to get hurt, I mean, God forbid, don't let that happen. The NBA needs Wembanyama to stay healthy, but Chet Holmgren would still be sitting there to win Rookie of the Year. So that's the situation. Not to take anything away from Brandon, because again, he has improved his numbers. And I've been reading the comments here and there when we talk about Brandon Miller, and I think people get upset at us for dinging him for some of the efficiency stuff and talking about some of the areas that he has to improve as his role in the offense has increased. And all I would say to that is that I'm not treating Brandon Miller like a rookie anymore. And the people that critique us for that would say, well, listen, he's doing all this as a rookie. No, listen, I'm just taking what everyone has said about Brandon Miller, which is that he's not acting like a rookie anymore. He's acting like someone who's been in the league for a few years. Everyone talks about his maturity, and his role in the offense is not the role that you would expect a rookie to have. And so I'm just treating him now like the veteran, like the accelerated player that everyone says he is. And so then I'm just going to tell you about the areas for improvement. And I think we've been more than fair to say that, like, though we think that there are areas that he could improve, Walker, we see all of the sort of indications that he will improve those sooner rather than later.
Oh, yeah, and I don't know if this is just different timelines. Like, basically the only comment, because I checked it out yesterday, it was one guy. Like, so, but he was very active. This person was very angry with us. And this is the person that I shouted out in yesterday's episode saying, hey, all of this is under the caveat, under the umbrella that he's a rookie. Somebody is going to not hear that. Somebody is going to neglect it and comment anyway. And that person took responsibility. And so whatever, all I'm saying, yeah, like this is, we can judge him however we want, right? Rookie, not so rookie because he's their best offensive chance, because he is one of their best players flat out, period. Even good defensively for rookie. And so however you want to judge him is fine. The dude deserves Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month. And the numbers as far as the season as a whole, compared to what he did in the month of February, the efficiency doesn't jump. It actually did jump quite a bit from January. If you look at those numbers from January 1st to, I think he played 13 games in January as well. He actually wasn't shooting all that well and still is able to win Rookie of the Month just because there's no competition. Like, unless you really wanted to do this defensive thing and try to give Asar Thompson some love, but Asar Thompson, that'd be faulty. So he shot 42% from the field, 33 on about 7 attempts from deep per game in the month of January. And so you did see him win this award back to back, and he was a lot better in February than he was in January. But to your point, it's season as a whole, I think is what you were referencing. And so Brandon continues to be like, this is ultimately like the Rookie of the Month awards. I'm going to forget next year what months he won. I'm going to forget. But what happens is, what we are going to know is that he wins multiple, and that there's only Wemby and Chet as to who you would want above Brandon Miller right now. And that's a win for the Hornets selecting second, and literally selecting the second best player in this past NBA draft. Yeah. That's a huge win for the Hornets, and that's what we can take away from this season as a whole, and Brandon winning all of these Rookie of the Month awards.
Oh, totally. But I'm just saying, I don't want to treat him like a rookie anymore, because I don't think the coach is treating him like a rookie. I don't think his fellow players are treating him like a rookie. I don't think NBA competition is treating him like a rookie anymore. And so there's no value in really, I know we caveated it last episode, but I'm going to caveat the caveat. I'm going to take back the caveat and say, forget it. Like, I'm going to critique this guy like he's a player that is developing into the player that he will become. I think it would be unfair to say, well, he's not doing this and Jason Tatum is doing this, like to compare him to players that have had the years to develop. But I'm not going to treat him like he's a rookie anymore, I think, because he's playing like a veteran. And so let's hold him to that standard, knowing that, again, he's going to grow into that and improve, because, again, every indication I've seen from this guy is that he learns quickly. And so I'm just getting ahead of the curve with my analysis of him, because I think he's, by year two, middle of year two, I think he's going to be someone that you look at and is pretty close to what he will become ultimately.
I like the idea of the second grader skipping second grade and instead going to third grade, but we still judge him on a second, or now we're judging him on a third grade scale, and now he's barely a C student. So now we can ding him a little bit. Like, you're too good, so we're going to bring you up to this level, and now we're going to ding you, and we're not going to praise you anymore.
Brandon Miller wouldn't want to be treated like a rookie. I'll tell you that. Like, Brandon Miller, all of his comments to me indicate that he doesn't care that he's a rookie. He came into this whole thing with a maturity level that far outpaced what we have been accustomed to, I mean, particularly with Hornets rookies. But I don't think he would want to be judged on that standard.
Okay. He's not a rookie anymore, folks. He's got 21 more games to go.
No more awards. I don't want March, April, Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month. No more awards. I want Sophomore of the Month awards.
So you don't want to talk about LaMelo. You don't want any more awards. What do you want to talk about next segment, Doug?
Jeff Peterson.
Okay,
is he going to bring the goods?
All right, let's go. Let's go to Jeff Peterson coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We got comments from Bobby Marks last week on Wes and Walker about Jeff Peterson. Steve Clifford also had some comments yesterday. Even though it's not official, Steve couldn't say too much, but we have some comments rolling in about the new president of basketball ops. We'll get to those in just a moment. Before we do that, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The wait is almost over, North Carolina. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is coming to your state. On March 11th, you'll finally be able to bet on all your favorite teams in all of your favorite sports. With FanDuel, there's tons of ways for you to get in on the action. You can bet on everything from the money line to over-unders to which team will win this year's Tobacco Road rivalry. All on an app that's secure, safe, and super easy to use. Plus, with live betting, you can even pick which player will put up the next bucket and the one after that. See for yourself why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon so you can be the first to know when FanDuel goes live in North Carolina. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel. 21 plus and present in North Carolina. If gambling is more than a game for you or a loved one, free help is available. Text more than a game to 53342 or call 877-718-5543 or visit morethanagame.nc.gov. One more segment to go. Locked On Hornets. All right, Doug, we had the crazy week last week. We had Jake Madison on, Locked On Pelicans. We said, okay, Trajan Langdon, if he's our GM, then should we feel good about it? It was a great interview. I don't know if it'll ever see the light of day. I'm not sure. But it was good. We got done with it. We're about to start the show. Plug it in. Hands clean. Locked On episode. Take it, world. It's a great one. Except Adrian Wojnarowski reports, as we're about to start the show, no, the Hornets are agreeing to a deal alongside Jeff Peterson, GM of the Nets, for Jeff to be the new Hornets president of basketball operations. So we had to scrap that episode. We had to do something different and just basically fly by the seat of our pants and tell you what we thought about Jeff Peterson as a shot caller with the Hornets. So then I got Bobby Marks on, Wes and Walker, asked him about Jeff Peterson's reputation in the league. We'll get to that in just a moment. But also, you know, with Jeff, like the #1 takeaway with him in Brooklyn is the fact that he helped recruit Kevin Durant and, of course, Kyrie Irving along the way. And at least you got talent with the Nets organization. At least you got that talent. And if Jeff had a part in that, then great. Could he do that here in Charlotte on some level? We asked Bobby that very question, and here's what he had to say.
You know, you never say never. I mean, it's a little bit different than what happened in New York with Leon Rose. You know, winning. Listen, at the end of the day, winning attracts players. I don't care what kind of relationship you have with a player. Guys want to win. You know, New York was different because Leon came from the agent side, and you know, there's a bunch of guys that he once represented are now there, whether it be Jalen or Josh Hart, guys like that. So I don't think who's running your basketball operations is the drawing card as far as why players want to come play in Charlotte or why they want to come in Atlanta. Guys want to win. Guys want to win a championship. Guys don't want to be in the lottery 3 years in a row. Guys want to get advanced to the second round, of the playoffs here. So I wouldn't say, just because Charlotte's, hired Jeff, that all of a sudden that it becomes a free agent destination. I would say that that's not the case for all 30 jobs there.
So there's Bobby Marks' comment. I listened to Zach Lowe last week. They had Nekias Duncan on. Nekias is our hero for mediocre to poor Eastern Conference basketball, and we thank Nekias for giving us. Speaking of the light of the day, like Nekias.
Patron saint of the play-in.
Well, thank you very much, Nekias. We appreciate your service. And so Zach actually gave him 30 seconds to talk about the Hornets, and that led into something a little bit longer. But they talked about, like Zach himself discussed how Charlotte. He did not use the term sleeping giant, but he compared Charlotte to Phoenix a while back when they were in a good market. It was like a fun team that I think NBA fans like when that franchise is good because it brings back some sort of basketball nostalgia. Every player that lives here loves it in Charlotte. He was quick to point that out, which is something we've been saying for however many years this podcast has existed. And so with that, on top of, Bobby Marks telling you, yeah, maybe it helps a little bit. It's only going to help if you win. How much of a destination do you think it could be for maybe not top tier talent, but just really good talent to say, you know what, I'm going to go play for Charlotte in free agency.
Well, it's not going to be a free agent destination until this team wins.
I've heard that from Mitch Kupchak. I've heard that.
Yeah, maybe. Even then, it's a maybe. This could be a destination if this team wins. It's not about free agency. It's about making the trade to bring the player in who may be on 1 or 2 years left on the deal, and then convincing that player to stay. It's one thing to do the coup and to bring the Kawhi to Toronto or the KD to X location. He's been in like 9 cities now, but that's one thing. The next thing would be to already have in place a winning culture and a winning group of players, or to quickly build that alongside of getting the major player. And so to me, that's the challenge for Jeff Peterson. Look, if he was involved in the KD thing, great. I think there were a lot of factors there, was having the other players alongside of him because, credit to him though, like Brooklyn is not the Knicks. Brooklyn is not the Lakers, right? I mean, it's not even though it is in New York City, it is not a destination necessarily for players. So there is some credit there for getting all of that talent there. But there were a lot of other factors, I think, involved in that as well. And so, look, you can pull off that deal here in Charlotte. You could go out and find that situation where there's a disgruntled player or a player on a bad contract that a team wants to get off of. You can make that move. But if you don't make those smaller to mid-sized moves, like we saw at the trade deadline, if you don't figure out a way to take what you got in that trade deadline haul, both the picks and the players, Trey Mann, if you don't waive Bertans and Micic, can you turn some of those players plus assets into better players for your team and become a playoff contender without making the coup? Not a championship contender. You got to do the coup to be a championship contender. But can you build that winning culture that would – I always talk about this because I'm in my day job, I'm a podcast video consultant for companies. And when they talk to me about, how do we get to such and such number of listens or such and such number of views? And I always tell them, before you think about that, think about getting a product together that if you were to get, say, 10,000 views an episode, that you would be ready for that. Say all of a sudden you did go viral. If you go viral and your product stinks, people are going to go, well, this stinks, and they'll never come back. So the Hornets have to build a culture that is ready to make that kind of acquisition. Otherwise, they'll just send themselves into another 10 or 12-year spiral of putridity.
Well, and okay, that's a great word. Oh,
I don't know. I had to look. I went out. I dove off the high diving board there with that word. I'm not sure that that's actually a word.
Zero splash if you did. Like, great dive, man. That's a 10. You knew it. Go ahead and get. There's not too many times I advocate for you to get swiggy with it because oftentimes it's just not worth it. That one was worth it. Nice job. Speaking of getting swiggy with it, it's I don't know if that's speaking of it at all, but we actually had some breaking news, Doug, during that little rant you just went on.
Oh my God! Again?
Not big, but just official. It's official for Jeff Peterson. As we're talking about him at 9:30.
What's the title? What's his title?
Jeff Peterson, let me read the tweet from the Hornets. Charlotte Hornets co-chairman Rick Schnall and Gabe Plotkin announced today that the team has hired Jeff Peterson as its executive vice president of basketball operations. Vice president.
Mm-hmm. VP.
What you think? Does that mean that we're going to go out and get Trajan Langdon and I guess co-president would be the way that you do that? I got greedy. I wanted more. I wanted all the basketball minds rolling in here, but that doesn't work after watching the Panthers, and so I don't know why I'm trying to do that again.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to be Trajan. I think Trajan's probably going to smartly wait for that next opportunity to open up. Because he is a top candidate out there to become somebody else's EVP of basketball operations. But it does mean, or it could mean, it doesn't have to mean this, but it could mean that they bring in a general manager like a Wes Wilcox, somebody that again has connections with Peterson, has connections with Schnall in Atlanta. But what it means is it is a Schnall Plotkin connection, not a Michael Jordan connection. And I think they should go out and hire a general manager, although I would say, look, if you're Jeff Peterson and you're 35, 36 years old, like, you don't need to you don't need to delegate every part of this process. I think if you're Jeff Peterson, you want to stay active in all of the processes. And then, 5-10 years down the road, if you're still the EVP of basketball operations, then you probably take a step back and maybe focus on some other things. But I want as many new voices, new minds as possible. I think we need whatever the opposite of a brain drain is. I don't know what that would be, but that we need more voices, more minds, more intelligence, more new, points of view, perspectives. Bring all of that into this organization and let's get this thing going.
Well, yeah, there are times where I'll go back to skip the grade. Like there are times you don't want to skip the grade. Jeff Peterson wants to maybe be this guy that is negotiating all of the deals before just basically serving as the conduit to the highest up on the food chain. So Jeff Peterson, I would imagine he would want that as well. I'm totally with you on that. Yeah, executive vice president. I didn't expect to see the vice part there, but it's there. So maybe we make more sense of that as we move on. Press conference supposed to happen tomorrow at 11 a.m. So Wednesday, March 6th at 11 a.m. is when Jeff Peterson will speak to the media.
But well, just quickly, just to follow up with your thought process there, is there something in your mind that's going, hey, is there someone that's going to be above Jeff Peterson, or do you think
No, I guess not. But is it just like, do we just not have, I don't want to make more into this and just be the idiot out here in front of everybody, but like, is Rick Schnall just going to be basically president of basketball ops and he's still the top guy and he just has that title even though he's the owner and he's the co-chairman?
What's better? What is president or executive vice president? Because there's an executive there at the beginning.
That's
is executive vice president more than president?
So I saw somebody else. I just clicked on it and somebody else commented, "Wait, who's president?" So I'm not the only one. Okay. Look, it could absolutely mean nothing. In fact, the probability of that meaning nothing is great. I didn't expect that title. That's not the first one I would have thrown out there.
You've got two people at the helm that are hedgies, that are hedge fund bros, and titles are weird in that arena of corporate land. And so I think Jeff Peterson is going to be the guy that calls the shots, and there will be people under him. I don't think that there's a bigger announcement coming.
No, I don't think that either. I do not think that. I want to make that
unless
clear.
It's Mike D'Antoni. Unless it's Mike D'Antoni, 50 wins, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I guess it's just Rick Schnall, right? As they hand off the responsibilities 5 years, and then Gabe Plotkin, he'll take over as president of basketball ops.
You know what? I'm tired of talking about titles. I don't want to talk about titles anymore. We're talking about executive vice president, president. I'm just done. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
All right, Doug's out of topics. We'll move on to nothingness. Thank you for listening to the Locked On Hornets podcast and making us your first listen. Make your second listen, Locked On NBA. Also go check out the 24/7 channel on YouTube. The first time anybody's really doing this since Anchorman 3. So make sure you go check it out. YouTube, the 24/7 channel, constantly streaming there. And follow us on Twitter, Doug Branson, LOH, Walker Mail, Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday, 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.